Hi guys, KingDarthur here. So for this video, we're going to be doing a BBL Season 4 draft analysis. I'm also going to do it on my stream as well. So if anyone wants to like talk during, I can answer questions about the draft, or if they want to like give me suggestions on like transactions or anything I should do. So basically, the BBL is up to Season 4. It stands for Basic Battlers League, and it's a showdown-based league. So I'll go through to the rules now, so get a sort of an overview for what the rules are for this league. So it's like I said, a showdown-based league. It runs for 9 weeks and has an additional 4 weeks for playoffs. So playoffs are obviously something you get into if you do really well during the regular season. So otherwise, if you don't do too well, you'll just have the 9 weeks. There's 18 teams overall, split into 3 divisions. So that's a whole bunch of teams. I think you play like each person in your division once, and I think you play 4 other people across the other divisions overall in that regular season. It's based on the traditional tier system for draft. So it has 6 tiers: S, A, B, C, D, and F tiers. For the S tier, you're only allowed to pick one Pokemon from that tier because that's sort of where the really broken Pokemon are found. So that's where you'll see stuff that are like, like Zygarde or Tapus and stuff like that. Just the really, really strong picks. Um, yeah, so you're only allowed one of those. And then as well as the 6, so you have to pick one from each of those 6 tiers. And then you also get 5 free picks with 440 points. And as you can see on the slide, there's an A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and F tier. And they all have points that you can see there: 180, 120, 80, 40, and 20 respectively. So you sort of have to really like budget around what you're trying to like what you're trying to draft. You need to be able to budget effectively and figure out what sort of is in that tier with the amount of points that you have left over. So it's pretty fun. I like it. It's quite strategic sort of stuff. That's why I like doing this drafting. And also I obviously want to get better as a competitive like battler and stuff like that. So it's definitely something that is pretty fun. I'm pretty new to it, so it's going to take me a while to sort of get good, I guess, at it. But I'm definitely enjoying myself, and I'm definitely looking forward to showing off like the battles in this BBL season 4. So to finish it off, there's the rules for the playoffs. So this is actually quite interesting. I haven't seen this in the other leagues I'm a part of, but so if you can get to the playoffs, they're actually best of 3 games. So instead of just doing one game for each week, during the playoffs you have to actually do 3 games, and it's obviously best of 3. So if you win 2 and lose 1, you win that, and if you both win 1, then you have to do a final one for the third match. So that's very interesting. I haven't really seen that before, so it's definitely something that will be very new to me and will really test me as a beginner as well. It's definitely something that I will be probably struggle with, but also I think it will make me get better at an even quicker rate, which should be good. The things that you can actually do is quite interesting as well. You can actually change your moves, EVs, items, and Pokemon. So you can actually change all of those things to edit your teams, which is pretty crazy. Only get 15 minutes in between the games, but to be able to change those is huge, and they recommend sort of bringing multiple sets already to each game. So I'm pretty excited if I can get to playoffs. Obviously, everyone who's in here would want to get to playoffs, but as someone who's quite new, I just want to learn. So I'm not going to be too upset if I don't make it to playoffs. This is my first season in this BBL, and it's sort of like really my first season across. I'm doing 3 drafts all up, kind of all at the same time. So yeah, to do like these sort of drafts that are a little more intense than say like my only other draft experience I've had is with a university, uh, and it's sort of something that's not too serious at all. So this is sort of a lot more serious, and the other 2 drafts that I'm doing, the UGL and the ISL, are also more serious. So I've definitely been like learning a lot, and I'm pretty excited. So I'll get to the actual draft now. So our first pick for this draft, so this is our S tier. Our first pick was Zygarde. So Zygarde is a really, really strong Pokemon. It is something that is pretty much banned in most leagues. I was pretty surprised to see that it wasn't banned in this one. Um, I got some help from a friend, Rick, who's I think the coach of the Atlanta Braveries in this BBL, and he sort of definitely recommended I pick up Zygarde. It was either going to be Zygarde or Melmetal, and he already picked up Melmetal, so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll just pick up Zygarde. It's a super strong Pokemon, as you can see there. It's got really good stats, base 108 HP, 100 attack, 121 defense. Pretty much everything's almost 100, and it's ridiculously strong because it gets this move called Glare, and Glare is a 100% accurate move that can also paralyze. So that's really, really strong in Pokemon because paralysis is just a very strong status overall. It halves speed and can also make you just completely paralyzed for a turn, so you just lose a turn. So it's sort of something that to be able to be a 100% accurate way of spreading paralysis is very, very strong. And the fact that Zygarde's stats are so bulky is just it just basically will always get a paralysis off, or it will always set up a substitute, or maybe even like a dragon dance or something like that. That's another thing that this Pokemon is ridiculously good at, is setting up. So it gets both coil and dragon dance and scale shot. So it's pretty much got all the sort of dragon based setup moves, and even like with coil, that's just a ridiculously strong move in itself. So it's definitely something that teams will have to be very, very scared of and really prep for. And that's obviously going to be really good for me because that, makes puts pressure on them and allows me a bit of freedom with different sets I can run as well. It doesn't have to just run sort of like the traditional, Dragon Dance sub sort of stuff. Glare. It can also, it still can run Choice Band, Extreme Speed. It can run Coil substitute. It can run like just sort of, it doesn't have to just run. You can even run special because base 81 special attack is, it's nothing too bad, and because it's fast, it's just got a lot of options. It gets Scorching Sands now because of the new moves in the DLCs as well. So it's got a lot of options. I think it's going to be a very, very good mon. It's probably going to be like obviously my star mon. I think throughout this season. It's something that I'm not too used to as a player. I'm definitely more used to having bulkier stuff well, I mean, this is very bulky, but I'm used to sort of having something that doesn't really need as much setup. So this thing is definitely going to test my abilities. That's kind of why I also picked it. I wanted to try something different. So I'm definitely excited to sort of, try all these different sets out, the coil sets, the dragon dance sets, all that sort of stuff. Pretty excited to, yeah, just try a few different things. So that was pick 4, by the way. So I was the 4th pick in this draft. So that's another reason why I was able to get this so early. So I think Melmetal was the 3rd pick, so it went just before me. Spectria was picked, and something else. So, very highly contested Pokemon. So I was kind of surprised that this didn't get picked, to be honest, in those first 3. But yeah, very excited and really happy that I was able to get it. The next Pokemon that we were able to pick up was Corviknight. So this was pick 35, by the way. So the way that the draft pickings work is you go down throughout the 18 people, and then you have to go all the way back up from the 18th person back to the first person. So that's, it's called a snake draft, where you go down to the bottom and then back up from the bottom to the top. So basically, yeah, I had to wait a while till my next pick because I was early on. So I was pick 35 for this one, and Corviknight made it to pick 35, so I was pretty surprised by that. I ended up picking up Corviknight because basically I wanted my Fairy Dragon Steel core, so that's a core that is very common in draft leagues and a very strong core. It's sort of something that they all help each other type wise. So cores are basically just you want things that complement each other, fire, water, grass, things that all have ways to hit each other super effectively and be defensive for each other. So that's pretty much what the Fairy Dragon Steel core is. So far I've got the dragon, as you can see in the top left, Zygarde, and now I've got this pick Corviknight. So Corviknight's just a really bulky Pokemon. It's still able to deal a decent amount of damage, but I think its real strength is to be able to just defog, roost, even like body press, bulk up sort of stuff. It's basically, it gets pressure, so it can also sort of stall out turns a lot as well, and force people to make maybe unfavorable swaps and stuff like that to try and get pressure on. So to be able to use a bulky Pokemon that's also an amazing typing in Steel and Flying, it's just very, very good. So it just complements the Zygarde really, really well as well. So they're both sort of kind of bulky, but can also um, set up and deal some damage. So they both do similar things, but their typings really complement each other. And I think later on in the draft, you'll see also like the typings really kind of coming in together with when we eventually pick up our fairy to finish this fairy dragon steel core. So yeah, so Corviknight, like I said, really bulky. That 105 defense, HP of 98 is very good. That's a very high HP stat for a base HP stat. Attack is nothing to scoff at 87 as well. Special defense 85. So it's just a very bulky mon, both specially and physically. And its speed, its speed's not the greatest, but it doesn't really need to be outspeeding anything. It's bulky enough to take hits. So yeah, you're not too worried about underspeeding anything. And it also gets U-turn. So actually, its speed can really help in allowing you to pivot out, take a hit, U-turn out, and now you've got momentum. Because obviously, I really want, and I'm trying to learn and practice getting momentum in my battles, because that's huge. To be able to switch in and then have them on the back foot is really, really good. Because now they're forced to switch, and you get momentum to click a move or even U-turn again, or yeah, just constantly sort of trying to keep up the momentum. So yeah, so we'll go into the third pick. So our third pick, if we click properly. Yep, our third pick is Blastoise. So Blastoise, obviously, as you can see on the top right, that's my sort of signature Pokemon. That my team's the Brisbane Blastoise. So I sort of just that's the kind of the main reason I picked it up. I was really actually going after Primarina because Primarina was basically the perfect Pokemon for this so far for what I have. Because if I was able to get Primarina, I would have been able to pick up both a water type, bulky water type, and a fairy, and that would have completed my Dragon Fairy Steel Core that I was sort of trying to go for. But Blastoise is again, it's a bulky water. It's as you can see there, it's got the 100 base defense, 105 base special defense, so it's definitely nothing to scoff at defensively. And what actually makes it even better, especially in this league, is it gets access to Shell Smash. And Shell Smash is an amazing move. It boosts your speed, your special attack, and your physical, so your normal attack, by 2 stages. So boost that all in one turn just by clicking one button. And it has a downside of making your other stats lower as well, like your defense, special defense, and yeah, that's it. So it has that downside, but normally you just run like a Wire Herb or something, so you actually don't lose any stats. So it's definitely something that is both able to be my like sort of bulky rapid spinner or flip turn, sort of just a bulky pivot as well. But it also, because it has access to that Shell Smash, it actually can be a sweeper that people need to kind of look out for and prep for as well. So basically, on my first 3 mons, they all are bulky and they all can potentially sweep teams. So they are definitely, there's a lot of pressure on like opposing teams each week when they look at my team to really try to figure out how they can crack something or to deal with all these mons. So basically, yeah, Blastoise was just a really good fit here, and obviously because it's my signature Pokemon, it's in my logo. I thought, might as well pick it up. It wasn't as good as Primarina, but I'm still really happy that I got it. And having something with Rapid Spin, obviously, in Draft League where hazards are really important, having something that can spin them away pretty easily is really good. So the next mon that we picked, so that was Blastoise, and the next mon is pick 71, which is Gardevoir. So Gardevoir was in C tier, which I think is really, really like it's very good value for a C tier pick. Um, as you can see, it's got a massive special attack stat at that base 125. So that's just huge. A base 125 on any stat is amazing, and the fact that it's special attack and with it's got a really offensive typing as well, but it also can be very useful defensively because as you can see there, it's got the special defense of 115. So it's got decent speed at base 80 or like decently fast. Attack and defense isn't very good, but that's not really what you're using it for, so it's fine. And its HP is pretty respectable, especially when combined with that 115 special defense. So this Pokemon gets also access to a lot of good moves. It can be a sort of like a cleric because it gets access to Heal Bell, it gets Wish, it gets teleport as well, so it can sort of pivot out and do slow pivoting into things as well if you wanted to. Probably wouldn't be using that too much with this mon because of how offensive it can be. It's really just it could be like a choice scarf user, it could be a choice specs user. It's got a lot of options. It can be assault vest even. Like it's got a lot of options as well as also those defensive options in like I said, Wish, Heal Bell, the sort of cleric based things. And it can even do Healing Wish, which is that fairy move where it faints and it will heal your next Pokemon up to full. So yeah, it's got a lot of options there, both defensively and utility based. Sorry, offensively, defensively, and even utility as well. So it's just a very good mon, especially for a C tier. So I was really happy to pick that up. And yeah, as I was saying earlier in the video, I wanted to get this Fairy Dragon Steel core going, and I was really happy I was able to get that in the first 4 picks. So that completes our Dragon Steel. So we've got the Zygarde, the Corviknight, and now the Gardevoir. So that's my core that I really wanted. And so I guess the next sort of core, or a core that I'm also trying to eventually get, is a water, grass, fire, sort of, the original typings. That's a very good core as well. Can be like defensive and offensively very good. So I've already got my water in the Blastoise. So I definitely eventually throughout this draft, I've had my eyes on picking up my fire type and a grass type. So yep. So for the next pick, we were able to pick up Drapion. So Drapion is also a C tier. So for this one, because you remember from earlier, you can only pick one of each tier, but then you have to use points to pick the rest. So for the C tier, that's 80 points. So that was I had to use 80 points to pick up Drapion, and I was the 76 pick, so only I think 5 before the Gardevoir, 5 after, sorry. So Drapion's a pretty good mon. One thing I noticed when I was drafting is that I'm kind of missing some like hazards, so like toxic spikes, that sort of stuff. And that's one of the best things that Drapion can do, is it can absorb toxic spikes because it's poison, and it can also set toxic spikes. So that's definitely something I wanted to have an option for, because I didn't want Zygarde also having to switch in on toxic spikes and getting poisoned right off the bat, because Zygarde wants to set up and stuff like that. So definitely wanted something that could absorb some toxic spikes but also set toxic spikes, because again, something that sets up would also appreciate having toxic spikes on the other side of the field. It gets some decent abilities. Battle Armor just prevents crits, so nothing too amazing. But Sniper is one. It's probably its best ability, which gives you increased chance to crit. So that's definitely something that can be quite useful and can get you those like sort of clutch crits when you obviously don't want to rely on crits, but I mean if you can get an increased chance, sure, why not? As you can see, its stats are really good as well. Base 70 HP is really good. 90 attack is really, really good. 110 defense, so it's actually quite bulky as well. It's 75 special defense, so that's also really good for a defensive stat. And base 95 speed is amazing. Like that's really, really good speed, especially in the Galar decks where it's quite slow mons. So yeah, it's nothing to scoff at. Really good mon. It gets knockoff, which is huge in draft. So very disruptive, knocks off, enemies' items and stuff. So very disruptive to their team. Toxic Spike's really good as well. It's a dark type, so it can also taunt um, things that might not be able to be taunted. It's sort of got a lot of options in its poison stab is really good too, and its dual typing is just a very, very good typing, because poison's super affected by psychic, and dark complete is a completely immune to psychic, so it actually prevents. It's one of its biggest weaknesses. The only really its only main weaknesses are like what do you call it, like earth and ground, sorry, and stuff like that. So also pairing that with Corviknight, I've got that ground weakness covered. So it's not very weak to many things, considering what I've drafted so far. And I also was trying to go after a poison psychic dark fighting core. Like it's really a poison, psychic dark fighting core. But I'm also trying to get that core as well, because they all sort of complement each other. That's the whole point of these cores. They complement each other's weaknesses, and offensively they complement each other as well. So I'm sort of trying to go after a few different cores there. Like I mentioned, the fire, water, grass, and the um, fighting dark psychic is sort of something I'm on. So I've already got the psychic in Gardevoir, the dark in this type, and I've even got poison also in this type. So yeah, brings a lot of good sort of things to my draft. So the next thing that I drafted was Darmanitan. So this one was at pick 107. So this was quite a while into the draft. So what are we? We're like halfway into the draft now, so that's about halfway. So the Darmanitan it was an A tier, as you can see, so I had to use my points for this one. So this sort of is the fire type that I was looking for, because I'm trying to get that fire, grass, water core going. So this thing is insane. This thing hits like a truck. As you can see there, it's got 140 base attack, and that's a huge stat to have. Just 140 in any stat is amazing. Its ability is even more crazy. It gets sheer force. It even gets Zen mode. Zen mode's quite an interesting ability. It like sort of changes its form and increases its defenses and stuff. It's not really used too often on this guy because sheer force is just an amazing ability. It actually boosts your damage even more. So yeah, having something that is base 95 speed, has an insane attack stat or offensive stat, and it has quite a good base HP as well with pretty average defenses, but its base HP makes up for that. So it's just a very, very good mon that can just hit like a truck. So really just, it's sort of is going to be used really to just punch a hole through enemy teams and sort of just either clean up, so it's either going to be used to clean up after I've sort of whittled things down, maybe with like toxic spikes or a few different U-turns and flip turns and stuff here and there. But yeah, it can either serve as sort of a cleaner, or it can serve as just an offensive mon that just is just going to punch a hole through the team and set up and get rid of things that might threaten, say like the Zygarde, which is 4 times weak to ice. So having something that also threatens those ice types or something like that a lot is really good for this team. So yeah, so I've got my offensive fire type, I've got my sort of defensive water and Blastoise, so they complement each other really, really well. And yeah, so that's basically what this thing will be used. It sort of might be used as like a choice Scarfer, choice Band, or like a Life Orb sort of set. They're normally the traditional sets you'll see on something like this. And yeah, it's basically, yep, just bring it in and just start clicking buttons, and that's sort of what you want to do with it. So I'm really excited to use it this season. Um, the next pick, which is Tangela. So Tangela was my D tier pick, so that's one of my ones. So I'm not using points for this one. This is just my normal D tier. So I picked Tangela because again, remember I'm going after that water, fire, grass core, and Tangela is a pretty really good mon because it was D tier as well, so quite a low tier. I was like, okay, well, I wanted a grass type, and a lot of the grass types had bulkier grass types have already been taken. So I was like, okay, well, I'll settle for something that's a little lower on the tiers. And I was able to find Tangela, which I was really happy with because Tangela has a really, really good ability. As you can see on the far right there, it's got Regenerator. So Regenerator is its hidden ability, and it's a really, really good ability. It's an ability that lets you switch out. When you switch out, you gain HP back. Can't remember the exact amount, but you gain, yeah, I think it's like 50 or 25% or something. You gain, yeah, a percentage of your HP back, and it really is going to be used on this team and traditionally as a bulky pivot. So really, when you have a regenerator mon, you kind of want to switch it in on something, take a hit, and then either like for in this case, maybe put a leech seed or a sleep powder, or just switch out again and try to gain some momentum. So yeah, this Pokemon is just really, really good at doing that. It can switch in. Obviously, it's more better at doing that on physical hits because its defense is really, really high. It's got a really good special attack stat, surprisingly, especially for a non-final evolution as well. So it's obviously going to be running like EVO-like most of the time because that's just going to increase its bulk even more because it's not a final evolution. It's obviously its attack and stuff like that's not good, but it's not really doing too much other than maybe a knockoff or something with its attack. So yeah, it's really just meant to be used to just eat a hit and then switch out and then keep eating hits and switching out. So that's really what, like most regenerated things, it's just going to just eat hits, switch out, and just be like a bulky pivot for me. So the next thing I got was the Sork. So Sork is pretty, it's kind of average mon in terms of move pool and things like that, but it gets some decently good abilities in Sturdy and Mold Breaker. So Sturdy is the ability that if you get hit by something that would have killed you, you instead survive on 1 HP. So, you're guaranteed, multiple turns in, which can be pretty good in case you want to revenge something or something's set up like crazy and your only way of killing it is just hitting it, but you can't outspeed it. Then yeah, something with Sturdy could be really good. Mold Breaker is a really good ability. It actually like kind of I guess you could say like it cancels out other abilities. So that kind of allows Sork to do some things that other Pokemon normally wouldn't. So it can actually hit Levitate Mons with Earthquake. It can hit a Mimikyu with Disguise. It can actually just go straight through the disguise and ignore it, which is quite interesting. So yeah, just sort of things that really rely on their abilities. If you can get a Mold Breaker Mon, it can sort of play around with that a little bit and yeah, just kind of be a little like disruptive to maybe their game plans and stuff. I really wanted a fighting type that I could spam close combat with as well. And this thing, obviously, if you look at its attack stat, base 125 is nothing to scoff at. So 125 base fighting stab move is it's just really good. So close combat on that, yeah, just really really good. So yeah, it's like it mold breaker. It's got close combat. It's got decent HP and defensive stats. So nothing to scoff at either. Its speed is pretty decent too. So it's sort of just an all round pretty good mon. And to be able to pick it up in F tier, which is the lowest tier, I thought that was really really good because there's in F tier there's not too many good mons other than maybe Alolan and Raichu, which yeah we'll get into that another time. But yeah, couldn't believe that was F tier. So the next Pokemon we picked up was Lycanroc Midday. So Lycanroc Midday is definitely sort of outshadowed by like the Dusk form and stuff like that, but this was a D tier pick. So I was sort of looking for something that was very fast because I had nothing that was over 110 base speed, which is sort of a speed tier you kind of want to hit because there's normally sort of mons that are going to sweep through teams that might be really, really fast and you need to have some way of dealing with them. So I thought Lycanroc, it's in D tier. I've still got plenty of points, and I needed to pick up a D tier anyway with my points the way I was drafting. So I thought, okay, I was looking for something fast. I found Lycanroc, and I thought, yeah, perfect. It's got really good space, obviously really good attack at 115. It's got really good speed at 112. So, and also it has its abilities aren't too crazy. Sandrush could be potentially quite interesting against like a Excadrill T-Tar sort of sand-based team, so could actually bring that against them and sort of use their own stuff against them, which would be pretty funny. I mean, Steadfast is, it's not the greatest, but it's sort of something you'd be running if you aren't versing sand. It's offensively, it's a really good typing in Rock. Rock's a really good offensive typing. It just hits a lot of things super effectively and can be really good. And also something that all the Lycanroc forms, or at least two of them get, is Accelerock, which is actually a priority-based rock move. So to have something that's priority and stab is just really, really good. So I was pretty happy to get that. It also is my only rocker so far, so I needed Stealth Rocks. It's not the greatest Stealth Rocker because it's quite bit frail, which can be a little bit of an issue. But I think I'm pretty happy with it so far. I might have to think about changing it in the future with transactions or something like that. But I'll have to just figure out what I want to do with that sort of stuff. So yeah, just a pretty good fast sort of hazard setter, and has a few little options with like Endeavor and Accelerock and different things like that. So it's got a few options, not just a rock setter or just a sort of fast hitter. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've got so far. And the next pick I picked up was Toxtricity. So Toxtricity is a pretty cool mon. I kind of just picked this up because I thought it just suited what I needed. So I definitely need an electric type. So in draft, having something that can Volt Switch is really good because again, it gives you momentum. And Volt Switch is just electric is a really good offensive typing as well. And on my team, I had no electric Pokemon yet. I kind of am doubling up on the poison types here, but I think with my draft, it's kind of unique that my Drapion actually doesn't get affected by Psychic, so the poison typing isn't too much of an issue. Obviously, there's a huge weakness with this mon to ground. It's both poison and electric are super affected by ground, so there's definitely a huge weakness to ground. But actually, the real reason I picked up this mon was because of its 4 times weakness. I was like, okay, well, I've got a 4 times weakness to ground, but I also have a Corviknight. And Corviknight just literally, like, Corviknight and this mon just are the perfect combination because Corviknight actually resists Psychic as well. Steel resists Psychic. So both of the things that are super effective against this Pokemon are completely pretty much walled by Corviknight. So Corviknight and this thing just, yeah, amazing combination together. As I said, this thing gets Volt Switch. It actually gets what do you call it? It gets shift gear as well, which could be quite interesting. So it's got nothing like decent stats as you can see there, base 75s on most things. So it's still got really respectable stats. Its attack and its special attack stat also are really high. So it's got pretty good stats, and its ability Punk Rock is very very good. That boosts I think it boosts like sound based moves or something like that. And because this thing gets Overdrive, which is its signature move, which is I think it's 120 base power electric move, that also gets boosted by Punk Rock, so it's actually way more than 120, which is, yeah, having a stab 120 plus electric move is really, really good. It's like I said, it's a little on the slower side at 75, but nothing too bad. This thing normally wants to run probably a Choice Scarf or a Choice Specs or something like that anyway, so it's not too worried about its speed being at 75. And yeah, so it's a really good mon. It can be fast, it can hit really hard, and it can also sort of just cover potential, like maybe a bit of an electric weakness I've got going. But I mean, with the Zygarde, obviously electricity isn't too big of an issue, but I can't always bring in Zygarde, and they might have other options. So it's still nice to have something that can also sort of get me into position with Volt Switch, so I can sort of bring in my Zygarde or my Blastoise. Just I wanted to have a lot of pivoting options, so I want to be able to obviously U-turn, Volt Switch, teleport, flip turn, things like that. I really want to have things that allow me to take a hit, switch out, and then bring in, say, like the Zygarde, or bring in the Blastoise to Shell Smash, or bring in the Corviknight to start setting up. So I've got a lot of setup options, and I've got a lot of ways to bring those Pokemon in. So I think it's a pretty good draft overall, I'd say. I definitely think that I've got my work cut out for me with this draft because it's definitely sort of a play style that I might not be that used to. I'm a little less. This is a bit of an offensive draft, I'd say, with like the Darmanitan, the Gardevoir, the Zygarde, and yeah, like the Lycanroc and things like that. They're quite heavy hitters and fast hitters, so I definitely sort of need to practice trying to gain that momentum, trying to predict things a lot and things like that. But I'm definitely pretty excited to do that with this draft. And I think that the tools that I've drafted so far definitely will allow me to get some really good, especially that Zygarde. I think Zygarde's obviously always going to be a standout mon. And I think that I think overall this draft of the season 4 of the BBL should be pretty good. I hope the Brisbane Blastoise and me can sort of take, obviously try to go for playoffs. I'm going to always try to win as much as I can. So if we could make it to playoffs, that would be really, really cool. I should be uploading sort of videos weekly for it as well. Might not be every week. It sort of just depends if the technology goes well and the stuff doesn't get corrupted or anything like that. But if it goes well, then yeah, I'll be trying to upload videos for this season, BBL season each week. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Obviously, like, comment, and subscribe and all that sort of good stuff. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and now I'm going to get back to streaming. Cool.